everybody, this is Sean Riley with Riley Real Estate and MassHomesale.com with this week's Q&A Saturday video. This week we're going to continue our series on selling a damaged home, and we're going to talk about or answer the question, can I sell a house with mold? So mold has been a pretty big hot button issue for quite a few years now. If you go back 20-25 years, you wouldn't even know mold existed. But people did have health problems, and it was identified that some kinds of molds can be very dangerous to your health, and that's why it became a big deal. Now, like most things, it sort of swung all the way in the other direction, where even small amounts of mold that really aren't that problematic cause a lot of red flags and cause people to get very upset and scared. So you do have to be very cognizant of any kind of mold you might have in your home, because it could come up as being a problem. So if you are trying to sell a house and you suspect you have mold, it could be a problem. First thing you can do is try to take some preventative measures before you even test for it or have somebody else test for it. So the major cause of mold is moisture. So the biggest things to do is make sure you don't have any excessive moisture sources which could cause mold. So you want to make sure you fix any plumbing leaks. You want to make sure you don't have any water penetration from the outside, roof leaks, leaky basements, leaky windows, anything like that. And you want to make sure you have proper ventilation throughout the house. That way, if you have a lot of humidity and stuff like that, it doesn't build up and make a nice environment for mold to breed in. Also, just air circulation in general helps prevent mold. A mold specialist actually once told me, if you take a bucket of water and you just leave it in your basement with still air, like you'll have some mold grow in it eventually. If you put a small fan on it so it blows over the top, you're never going to see anything. So ventilation is a very big thing as well. Excuse me. So that was the main thing, is prevention and getting rid of moisture sources. After you do that, if you have some places that you suspected to be mold, you can just wash them really well and make sure they are dry. Make sure after you dry them that there isn't any other moisture sources where it could come back. You can repaint stuff. If you do that, you want to use a moisture-preventing paint, something like a Kills primer and moisture-resistant paint and stuff like that to make sure you don't have any problems. These are for small, superficial things, stuff that people would probably refer to as mildew, which is just mold, and it's just a different way of saying a little bit of mold. If you do need to do something a little more drastic, you can get mold testing and then prevent mold remediation with a professional remediator. You do want to be careful that generally you want to use a different company to do the testing and to do the remediation, because otherwise it's a conflict of interest in a couple of different ways. Obviously, the first one is maybe they recommend work that you don't really need because they know they're going to get paid for it, and if they are the ones doing the testing at the end, if they don't do a good job, they could still say that everything's clean, and it might not be. But in general, if you do have a real mold problem, like the black toxic mold that really is dangerous, you should always have a professional company do a full remediation where they're going to use HEPA filters and reverse pressures, and this is where you might see people like tenting a whole house and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be that serious, but that's when you see those kind of measures. So mold test is something that does come up fairly regularly when buyers do home inspections. And if you are a buyer doing a home inspection, it's probably a good thing to look into, especially if you have concerns that there might be places that might have mold. You might want to skip it. It can be somewhat expensive, but when people do it, if they discover stuff, once they discover stuff, you are much more limited in your options. Like I said, generally you're not going to let you get away with just washing things and repainting and stuff like that, even though that very well could just take care of the problem. If it's a small amount of one of the benign molds. If you have like toxic mold, again, like I said, you need to do a full remediation. That can be pretty expensive. If you have or suspect having mold in your house, you might want to consider working with investors, because it doesn't bother us. we know what it is, we know how to take care of it, and we just budget for it in our offer. We're not going to pull out or try to get extra concessions from you, as long as it's something that was known. If it's, again, if we find something that's really bad that, like, we didn't notice at first, that could change things. But for the most part, it's not going to be a problem. We might have to do a little bit of a price adjustment and something like that, but we'll still buy it. Usually. Like I said, there's never a guarantee on any of this stuff, but you're much more likely to find somebody who is willing to deal with the problem, not going to try to get you to pay extra for it, and is willing to, deal with the problem themselves instead of having you take care of it. If you work with an investor versus, especially first-time home buyers, or buyers with small children that are extra sensitive about having any kind of possible health issue, no matter how small it might be. So that's a very brief primer on dealing with mold in a house and being able to sell it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, you can put them down below, and if there is any topic you would like to see covered in one of our Q&A Saturday videos, you can post it on our Facebook, put it on our Twitter, send an email to masshomesale.com, or leave something in one of the comments. But for now, have a great week, and I'll see you guys next Saturday. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.